Eddie Hearn, promoter of the super fight on Saturday night. We just had the press conference, FROCH v Groves. Tell us what you thought about that press conference.
It's one of the best I've ever been a part of, and you know what's interesting here is two intelligent guys. You know, not two big brutes who say I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Two guys that make a very good case, both believable, about how they're going to win this fight on Saturday night. On paper, FROCH's argument is I'm operated at a level well beyond you. I believe I punch hard enough to cause you damage. You're not at my level. I'm convinced. George Groves is, I am at your level. I'm even better. And by the way, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it this way, that way. And it's like, I think I believe him. Or do I believe him? You know, but that's the beauty of it, is that they've both got convincing arguments. And you know, you ask people who's going to win this fight now, it's 60-40, 65. When it was announced, it was more like 80-20, 70-30. And you know, people in boxing, people who really know the sport, see it as a very, very close fight. And so do I. You know, and I think George is, you know, he explained how he's going to make the fight, and I think he will fight like that. I think it's the only way he can fight against Carl Froch. In my opinion, if you go on your back foot for 12 rounds, it's going to be a horrible fight for him to you know, and also it's going to do him no favours if he loses, you know. So it's just fascinating with a couple of days to go now. You know, Twitter, they're both trending now just for a, you know, I mean, it's gonna grow and grow and grow tonight, tomorrow at the weigh-in, and you know, I can't wait for fight night.
Who do you think actually got the better of the exchanges today? Because George seemed to wind him up during the press conference, and at the end of the head-to-head there, George seemed to storm off a little bit.
I think Carl got the best of the exchanges today. I think at the first press conference, I thought George got the better of him, because I don't think Carl really expected it. He was really wound up, but you know, I looked at both men, and you know, I think George was a little bit rattled today, because it's here now, you know, and no one knows if George Groves is ready for this. Like Rob McCracken said, he may be brilliant, and he may go on to win, and you know, but he may not be, and he may not be good enough. I believe George Groves is a quality, world-class fighter. I also believe Carl Froch is one of the best Britain's ever had. So it's this classic crossroads of George Groves' career that's going like that, and Carl Froch's career that's going like that, and they're meeting in the middle, and it's who's going to cross over who first. Is it too early for George Groves? Is it one fight too many for Carl Froch? We just don't know, but these are the unanswered questions that make it so intriguing. And you know, when I made this fight, I felt as though it would be a big fight, but I never expected it to be this big. You know, it's captured the imagination of everybody. The numbers that we're hearing from Sky already are 4 times as big as Kessler pre-booking. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to be 4 times big on the night, but it's a great sign. And, you know, I think it's a wonderful occasion for British boxing.
You've been around Carl a lot. You're not just his promoter now, you're his friend as well. And you've been around him for some of his biggest fights recently, the Andre Ward fight, the Lucien Boutier fight, and the Kessler rematch. How does his demeanour this week and in the build-up to this fight compare to those other 3 big fights that you've been with him with?
Well, he's certainly more motivated than I've ever seen him. And that was my concern for Carl Froch going into this fight. He feels that George doesn't deserve this fight. He doesn't deserve the shot at the world titles. He doesn't deserve 21,000 people at the MEN Arena. He doesn't deserve the Sky box office. But he got it. And that first press conference rattled Carl Froch by his own admission. And that drove him on in camp. And that's given him the desire to win this fight. Andre Ward was a non-event. Carl Froch wasn't even in the game mentally for that fight. And that's his own problem. You know, that's his own fault. But let me tell you, he wasn't even, you know, we walked out that night at Atlantic City at the Bulbul Hall. There was about 2,500 people there on a rearranged night in December in Atlantic City. It was snowing, and it was just, you know, and then Lucien Boutier, and he was a different animal. But there was a lot more, the pressure and it felt more tense, because it was his career he was fighting for. And don't get me wrong, this might be his career he's fighting for as well. If he loses to George Groves, where does he go from there? You know, so, but I think he potentially questioned himself mentally before the Boutier fight. In Carl's head, he can't lose this fight. But in George Groves' head, he can't lose this fight. So someone's wrong.
Do you think George has got some points in some of the flaws that Carl's shown in some of his wins and in the 2 losses that he's had? And do you think that although Carl's been through an amazing run of fights. He's maybe been slightly overrated in the sense that, yes, he won a lot of those fights, but he did struggle in some of them, and they're the points that George and Paddy are picking up on.
But you struggle because of the level of opposition. That's the counter argument, isn't it? I mean, it's very easy to say, oh, you lost against Durrell. Durrell is one of the slickest operators on the planet, and actually during that time, that period, he was on top form. Ward beat you comfortably. Ward beats everybody comfortably. I like to look at the wins. Pascal outboxed Abraham, completely. Even the first performance against Kessler, who was in his prime at the time, really close. The second performance against Kessler, the Butte fight. Now, even the Mack fight, which I know it was a bit of a gimme opponent, but he destroyed a light heavyweight who was supposedly going to cause him problems early on with movement. So Carl Froch has his flaws, no doubt about that, and I don't think that he deals the best with speed and movement. But that's what George Groves has got, speed and movement. So it's fascinating.
And you referenced there that the pre-sales are looking 4 times as much as the Kessler fight. But as an event as a whole, how do you think this compares to the Mikhail-Kessler rematch?
I think it's going to be more intense. I think it's 2 Brits. So, it's a much more... I think the Kessler fight might have appealed more to the casuals initially. And people might think that's strange. But, Kessler's the Viking warrior, he's fought against Calzaghe, etc., etc. He beat Carl the first time. I think this has grown and grown and grown, and I think it will continue to do so over the days. Scott Quigg. We only have 4 world champions in Britain, and Scott Quigg's one of them, and so is Carl Froch. So 2 are fighting on the night. We've got a really good local derby with Crawler against Foster. Got Olympic gold medalist Luke Campbell. Andy Lee's replaced Martin Murray. Rocky Fielding's fighting Luke Blackledge for the Commonwealth title. It was a really good fight. Stephen Smith's fighting Manuel Medina for the WBC. So it's a packed card as well. And these are the nights for me that you remember. I don't think we should take these for granted. Because I look back now to Ben Eubank 2 at Old Trafford. I remember that occasion and that moment, and this is what this is going to be like. We need to remember these because they don't come along very often. I mean, Kessler was a one-off, and now we've had this. It's in the space of 6 months. We're very lucky.
We've talked about this event, but you've had a lot going on the last few months. You've obviously got Tony Bellew out next week, the week after, challenge for a world title. But let's just talk a little bit about the prize fighter and a little bit of backlash that you got as a promoter from the sort of more the hardcore fans rather than the wider public about having someone like James Toney involved in that and sort of the past-it kind of guys. That's what they were calling him. Did you think there was anything wrong with having someone like Tony in there who's maybe past his best, and the argument is that he's slurring his words, etc.? What do you say to that?
If you know anything about boxing, you know that James Toney's always spoke like that. I'm not saying that it hasn't got worse, he's got older, but that would happen genuinely. He's competing at a decent level. He won his last fight. He went 12 rounds with Lucas Brown, in the summer. If it was James Toney that hadn't boxed for 3 years and decided to come back, it would be a complete no-go. It's a James Toney who's active and he's actually beating people. He passes all his board medicals, which are, they're strict. So he's free to fight. 2 hats on, commercial hat, fan hat. We've got to make some money. We've got to deliver ratings. We've got to sell tickets, right? That did all of those. Great ratings, sold out arena. The boxing wasn't great. And it didn't do what I thought it would do. Actually, I fancied it would be a little bit more entertaining. Everybody loved it, ratings were good, hardcores hated it, as per usual, But hopefully hardcores will love what we're doing on Saturday night. We can't keep everybody happy all the time. But I do have a responsibility to deliver ratings and to make some money. And that helped us to do so. And James Toney won his first fight, against Matt Legg, who's 7-1 or something like that. So totally understand the view of the hardcore fans. James Toney shouldn't be fighting. He was a one great, but you can't ignore the wants of a man. If he wants to fight and he's healthy to fight and he's beating people and who am I to say no, you can't? He was available. It was a great experience for everyone. It rated great. It sold out. What more can I tell you?
Talking to the hardcore fans, just one last question. No one can deny that the fight between Tony Bellew and Adonis Stevenson's a great, call it a trade fight, whatever you want to call it. It's a great fight for a genuine world title. Tony's been very quiet in the build-up to this. I mean, you've obviously been in contact with him. How's he feeling and what's going on with that?
Well, I think that's part of the plan. And I think that's, one of the reasons that I think it's going to work in his advantage, this fight being before, because all the focus is on this fight. And obviously from Monday, everyone will start talking about Tony Bellew. Excuse me. So, but he's in New York. He has been for a couple of weeks. Everything's low key. Everything is fantastic as far as his preparation is concerned, and I believe he's going to win. I believe that's a 50-50 fight. Now, don't look at Adonis Stevenson against Dawson, which was a fantastic knockout, or an unmotivated Tavoris Cloud. Look at him against Don George. Look at Bobby George. Yeah, look at him against Don George. Look at him against Darnell Boone when he got knocked out. You know, he's a quality fighter. He's not Superman like he makes out. Tony's got a plan. It's a bit like this fight. Paper says Stevenson should win. You know, but Tony makes a great argument, and I believe him. So, you know, I can't wait to get out there, and if he can win out there, you know, with no options as a mandatory challenger, mate, we're calling this one the life changer, and that's what's on his phone. This is the life changer for Tony Bellew.
Very last question, sorry Eddie. David Price signed with your good friends, the Sauerland brothers. Did he come to you? Did you have a conversation about signing with you?
Yeah, we had a meeting, we had a good chat. It was quite brief. You know, we said there'd been opportunity to do stuff with us. It took a lot of time, and then we came back and said, look, we're out of time, so good luck. We'll probably work with the Sauerlands at some point with David. I think he's a good fighter. I think he's got a lot more to give, and a lovely bloke. Wish him all the best.
Eddie Hearn, thanks very much. Best of luck for Saturday night.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks a lot, man. Cheers.